All right, every Monday we do a deep dive into what your elected officials have been up to, and we are entering what could be the final few weeks of the Iowa legislative session. We just passed an important funnel deadline this past Friday. So here to help break down what bills are still alive is Dana Searles of our sister station, WOI in Des Moines. All right, Dana, I want to start with healthcare today. The House has passed a bill that would raise taxes on HMO health insurance plans, and the idea is this money from these taxes would help cover a massive Medicaid deficit the state is facing. Why are Republicans split on this issue?
What this bill would do is it would raise those premiums for HMOs from the current tax premiums, which is 0.925%, all the way up to 3.5%. Now, the reason there's a lot of divide on this is because a lot of people are saying that Iowans and a lot of lawmakers are saying Iowans are going to feel the pinch of this, comparing it to whenever a business has to raise their taxes or raise their prices. It's always the consumer and the customer who has to make up that burden. However, the Iowa legislature is arguing those that are for this are saying this is needed to make up for that massive deficit and saying that right now Iowa is losing out on millions of federal funds that would match to make up with these taxes. I do want to note, though, in this bill, the tax would only be raised through September 30th of 2026. So it would only be for a few months of this year, and then starting October 1 of 2026, that would flip back to that 0.925% tax rate.
And we should point out, when we're talking about this Medicaid budget shortfall, we're talking $600 million budget shortfall over the next 5 years. You have a lot of insurance and business groups saying they do not support this bill. The House GOP is split. In fact, you saw 10 Republicans voting with Democrats to stop this bill, but it did ultimately pass the House. We'll see what happens to it in the Senate. But another bill we've been watching is one that would limit the governor's power. It passed the House, and now the Senate version is looking to expand this bill even further. So what are senators saying?
Yeah, so you might remember the bill that ultimately passed the House would put restrictions on Iowa's governor, and it wouldn't allow the governor to close any churches, any businesses, or certain places of worship during times of natural disaster. Now, this bill was brought up after the COVID-19 pandemic. So the Senate adopted the House's bill that says just that. However, the Senate did add their own amendment, and it would allow the state government to be funded and to operate if the governor or legislature does not reach a state budget. Now, lawmakers are ultimately concerned about that specific amendment because they're saying it would allow lawmakers to just gavel out whenever they please without passing that state budget. Now, you might remember last year, eminent domain was a hot topic in the legislature, still is a hot topic, but that's ultimately what held up the legislature from gaveling out last year. It's important to note that the state budget is pretty critical in terms of keeping the lawmakers, on track and also helping them get their priorities across. Reason a lot of eyes are on these bills and the specific bill is just because there's an open governor's race. So we're going to have to wait and see kind of what happens in that seat.
All right, Dana, that brings us to our last point, and you mentioned the budget there. We are in the final few weeks of this year's legislative session, so what are lawmakers still looking to pass through before the session's over? You mentioned a budget. What are some other ones?
Property taxes is the thing that we've heard all session long, and it's still kind of in limbo. We still have 3 different proposals, which we've talked about. We have the House Republicans, Senate Republicans, and the governor's proposal. Now, the governor's proposal and House Republicans' proposal are pretty much aligned, pretty similarly aligned in the sense of they both want a 2% cap on revenue growth, on that tax revenue growth. However, the Senate Republicans want that cap to be tied to inflation. So that would be more of a soft 2% cap, but it could waver depending on inflation. But recently what happened this past week is the House Republicans actually added an amendment to their bill, which went even further to aligning with the governor's bill. A couple things that they added. It would create a grant program to help local governments share services, to kind of help consolidate those local government services and hopefully save some money there. And then it would also limit economic development districts to just 20 years. So those are just 2 points that the House Republicans amendment to align with the governor's bill. So another thing I want to talk about is eminent domain. I brought it up earlier. It's been a hot topic at the legislature for the past I don't even know how many legislative sessions, at least 3 to my knowledge. That's since I've been covering the Iowa legislature. Always a hot topic. We know that at the start of the session, House Republicans fast-tracked an eminent domain bill through their legislature. Hasn't seen any movement in the Senate side of things. However, Senate Majority Leader Mike Clemish was asked last week before the final deadline where eminent domain stands, and he assured reporters at the State House that they are having a lot of conversations about that topic behind the scenes. He said it has not taken a back burner. There are still a lot of conversations being had. He didn't go into further detail about what those conversations look like, but he said he's talking to people both for and against this eminent domain bill. So he said he's confident that there's still a lot of conversations to be had, so we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens there. But all eyes really now turn to property tax proposals.
And we'll keep following it week over week. Dana, thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate your time. For you guys at home, we have our political coverage for both states up on our website. Just click on the As Seen on TV tab at the top of the homepage at WQAD.com.